friends, and welcome back to yet another episode. Today, I just want to show you what's inside my camera bag, my everyday setup whenever I go out this door, get off a plane, and go to a photo shoot or a wedding. So I just want to unpack my camera bag. First, this is an Ona bag, O-N-A bag, and I have had this thing for years, probably 6-7 years now. It goes everywhere with me. I beat this thing up and it has stood the test of time. So first, love this camera bag. Now, let's open it up. So first things first, my camera and my go-to lens. I'll tell you this right now. My camera is 8 years old. This is a Canon 5D Mark III, and right now as I'm recording this, the Mark IV is out. I started way back in my professional career on a Mark II, and I have had this camera before I was even married. Before Jess and I were even married. She actually bought this camera for me before we were married because I was broke and I had just sold my car to buy a wedding ring, and we were in business together, and it was her like, hey, we're in this, here's this, and I have kept it ever since because I have two criteria that it takes for me to upgrade equipment. I'm not a gearhead, I'm not a techie, I'm technologically savvy, and I really like nice gear, but it has to hit at least one of two categories. One, it has to either create a remarkably better product, in this case a photograph or a video, or it has to make my life and the process significantly easier. It has to make things more convenient, more user-friendly, with less technical effort on my part. Jess is shooting on the Canon 5D Mark IV. She upgraded the second it came out. I got my hands on it. I started shooting. We photographed on it. I photographed some sessions and a wedding. For the past 8 years, I've been shooting on this, and it's never done me wrong, and nothing against the Mark IV. I think it's a remarkable piece of equipment. I'm actually videoing this on the Mark IV, but it didn't make, in our world, the photographs we take, a big enough difference for me to want the new camera, because I knew one day there'd be an even better one. We'll talk about that in a second. And the second thing is it didn't make anything easier. The touchscreen was nice, but I know this camera like the back of my hand. I don't have to look at exposure anymore. I can just hit the buttons just from where I'm at and know what's going on. And that didn't change since I shoot on manual mode inside the Mark IV. So I decided to stick with this. Keep in mind, over the past 8 years, I have replaced the shutter and the insides of this camera 3 times, so Canon is very familiar with this camera. This has just been my favorite camera so far, and it is beat up. I mean, like, all of the little pieces are off, just has a lot of character. But that being said, a camera did just come out recently that is on its way here. When it comes, I will open it up and we'll talk all about it. So I just ordered the Canon R6, which is their mirrorless camera, and I'm very excited for it. It's actually going to replace my everyday shooter and my cameras that I use to record these videos. So I'm super excited for that. And if you didn't notice, it hits those boxes. It makes my life easier. I can reduce all my gear to one camera for video and for photo. And 2, I have seen it, and the product, the photographs and video it takes, is remarkably better than the Mark III and the Mark IV. So, upgrade on its way. But first thing in my camera, this is what you will see me with 80% of the time. This is the Canon 5D Mark III and the Canon L Series 35mm 1.4. I know a lot of you love the 50, and that's great. I also love the 50. But for some reason, I just like the 35 a little bit better. The only other lens inside my camera is the Canon L Series 70 to 200mm 2.8. This is what you will see me with. No matter what, whatever I'm photographing, this is what I'm photographing with. This, if I'm not leading, so if I'm either shooting a ceremony or Jess is leading a session, I'm on the side getting candid moments with this. If I'm leading, I'm shooting the 35mm. That's it. The only other exception to lenses is if Jess and I are at a wedding, I also bring in a backpack separate. This is a Canon L Series 17 to 40. I don't think they make this lens anymore. This lens has just been around It's always been around as long as I've had gear, and it's remarkable. It's actually only a 4.0, but I exclusively use this for absurdly large family photos, like when they're like, we want to take a photo of the whole wedding. I was like, great, I got that. Or dancing, because it opens up to 17, and I'm inside the dance floor with people, and that's how I get all my dancing shots. The only other thing that's not in my camera bag right now that I bring in that backpack is Jess and I bring a handful of these 600 Canon Speedlights for our on-camera and off-camera setup for a wedding. But other than the 17 and that, everything else is the same. I also have some other trinkets in here that just come in handy that I've collected that I tend to use almost every shoot, for sure every single wedding. Lint brush, plenty of CF cards, lens cloth, mobile, iPhone, charger. This thing, I probably lose 3 or 4 of these every year because a bridesmaid or a groomsman or someone borrows it, but you can find them for like $5-10 on Amazon in bulk, and I just put one, charge one in my bag. That way, if my phone dies, if Jess's phone dies, or the bride or groom needs it, you're there to save the day. Batteries, more and more batteries. Make sure you always have charged batteries, although on average I only go through one a wedding, but I would hate to be in that spot where my battery dies and I'm the guy that didn't bring a battery, so I didn't get the photo. Not okay, you're a professional. Bring batteries. Advil. Lighter, ideally barbecue lighter, but I just carry this. I think it's like a cigar lighter. I always photograph the details at the reception, and for some reason the caterer never has a lighter or isn't there with the lighter, so I light the candles that I want to photograph on the table I want to photograph and then blow them out. So always bring a lighter to a wedding. 2 pens, I would say about 75% of weddings, they end up using one of these 2 pens to sign their marriage license. Like I said, I'm there. It's just those added things that if you're carrying them, you can save the day, and it just makes the day go more smooth. Foldable comb, absolutely necessary, obviously. Last thing in my bag is a pocket knife. This comes in handy all the time, whether it's cutting tags or opening something. For some reason, pocket knives are just the way to go. Also, one of those little mini Swiss Army knives. Other honorable mentions that aren't currently in my camera bag because they usually live in Jess's bag. A sewing kit, 3mm command hooks just in case you need to hang the dress, and a little package of mints. Not gum, because you don't want anyone you're taking photos of smacking their gums, eating gum during the wedding, but mints because it's just a nice gesture, and everyone's gonna feel better if everyone's breath is nice. And that's it. That is all that's in my camera bag. I pack light. Gear to me are tools. Everything inside my camera bag, including my camera bag, I use as a tool. It's not to look fancy. It's not to get the newest piece of technology. It's to have the tools to do my job. And right now, these are the tools, and for the past 8 years, these are the exact tools that I've used to photograph over 300 weddings. It's the tools I've used when we were named #1 wedding photographers in California. Jess is also photographing with her whole setup, but all her setup is this setup I'm staring at right now, which is the Canon 5D Mark IV and the 50mm 1.2, and the only other lens in her bag on the wedding day is a 100mm macro, and that's for details and ring shots, and it's also for getting slightly closer during the ceremony. That is it. If we're photographing an engagement session or a portrait session, 2 cameras, 4 lenses. If it's a wedding, 2 cameras, 5 lenses. Of course, we have a backup that's always in our car. I think it's a 5D Mark II, just in case one of our cameras goes out. We have a backup. Never had to use it. Hope we never have to use it. And if you are just getting started and you're thinking, this is a lot, where do I even start? I would suggest, I'm biased to Canon, although Nikon and Sony are both very reputable, very fantastic companies. I would suggest starting with a baseline full frame camera, which just means the sensor that's taking in the information that creates the photo is full size. There's also smaller cameras like Canon Rebels that are cropped, which means you're actually not getting as much information in the camera as you possibly could. And to a degree, it's more of like the amateur sized camera versus a professional size. So start, I would say, with a full frame camera. Baseline, you can get a Canon 6D that's an amazing camera, I think for about just above $1,100 and used. You can probably get it for $800-900, and that's an amazing camera to start with. And if you're looking for any lens to start with, obviously I'm biased for the 35. I would not go with the kit lens. You probably noticed, if you didn't, a lot of people use the 24-70. That is mine and Jess's least favorite lens on this planet. Even 24-70 2.8, for some reason, it's not sharp. It seems like it's a versatile lens, but for some reason, when you're actually using it, Jess and I never get what we want out of it. So we got rid of it. Like a week ago, I sold it. I just got rid of it. I don't need it. I'm happy with my setup here. But if you're looking to get started and you can't drop all the money in the world or invest in good glass yet, that's totally fine. I would skip the kit lens, or if you already have it, sell that and purchase the Nifty 50, which is Canon's, I think it's $125, but it's a 50mm 1.8 lens, and it's a fantastic starting point because it's a 1.8, which means you can get those beautiful, buttery, blurry backgrounds and start taking remarkable portraits with it. As time goes on, you upgrade your gear, and if you want to use my personal belief system in upgrading gear, if it makes your work remarkably better, which high quality glass always will, and if it makes your job easier, which for the most part, once you get into a higher tier of cameras, there's image stabilizers, they can shoot in low light better, all those things, they will make your life easier. That's how I base all this gear off of, and that's my suggestion to you. Thank you for hanging out with me again, friends. If you guys like this video, smash that like button. Also, I want to hear what your camera setup is. No shame, I don't care if it's a Rebel and a kit lens. I don't care if it is the R5, the R6, and some kind of crazy lens, a 135, whatever it is. Hit those in the comments. I want to hear what your daily shooter is. And until next time, know that I'm here for you. Know that I believe in you and you are capable of great and amazing things. And I will see you in the next video.